Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Jackie Wu, who is the founder and CEO at Corvus Robotics. And they are utilizing unmanned drones to do inventory management as well as some other tasks within the warehouse as well. And we're going to learn a little bit about that. We're going to hear a little bit about how their solution kind of came together as Jackie is the founder and what it's all about, and also how they're using large world AI models. We're going to learn about what that is. First off, Jackie's going to teach us here today, and we're also going to hear why that matters when it comes to this inventory management solution. So, Jackie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks so much. Hey guys, appreciate you inviting me and excited to talk about all things warehouses, AIMS, autonomous inventory management systems, and how AI will be changing inventory management for warehouses soon.
All right, awesome, and definitely interested to hear about this. As people know that listen to the show, I'm a big inventory management control fan because that's how kind of where my career started in the warehouse world. But definitely interested to hear about Corvus Robotics, and interested to hear too how this kind of came about. How tell us a little bit about it, and how did you found the company?
Yeah, I was in grad school for robotics in Chicago, and now we're on the West Coast. We're in Mountain View. We build all of our vehicles, all of our robots here in the U.S.,
Mm,
which is an important distinction, especially with, sort of everything that's going on. I was in grad school, and uh, as a fellow warehouse nerd, I'd been to 2 dozen warehouses
mm,
in 10 different countries, in Europe, in Asia, in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And I realized that all warehouses are tracking inventory the same way. Like
mm,
almost every single, like 90 something percent of warehouses, right? So it's people, barcode scanners, climbing scissor lifts. And when I was in grad school, there was this new technology coming out to allow robots, aerial robots, to be fully autonomous
mm,
using a vision-based system. And so I wanted to solve this challenge with basically the latest technology coming out
mm.
in hardware and software. And so I met our CTO, Kabir. Like the joke is we met online, like most couples do these days. We were on GitHub, which is this code repository
Yeah.
website. And there's this one handle that kept answering everybody's hard questions. And so I ping him thinking he's like a 40-year-old man somewhere, and he said he says he's going to be in Boston in the fall,
Mm.
and it turns out to be an incoming freshman at MIT.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and so we built the first vehicle actually at Simmons, which is like his MIT dorm.
Mm.
I don't know if you know this, but most drones in the world are or were based off of essentially this autopilot stack.
Okay.
And he was one of the founding contributors of that autopilot stack back in the day, which
Oh,
is an
interesting.
interesting coincidence. Now these days there's so many DJI does this and that, and of course people repurpose dual purpose drones for other reasons, but a lot of the core autocontroller was kind of invented back in the day.
Mm. Interesting there, and definitely interesting too to learn about that. And I got to ask you because you said that you were a warehouse nerd, right? So where did that come from?
um, I have a family member who built this company that expanded to a lot of warehouses, essentially.
Okay.
And one of the core challenges that I would hear him say was that, like, stuff has gone, like, where is this shipment? Where is this going? Somebody else screwed up some order. And that was just the constant operational headache and the logistic sort of problems that every it seems like every company selling physical goods deals with on a daily basis.
Mm,
And I thought that there had to be a better way with the computer vision and robotics that was just starting to come into research. And so if it's coming into research, then a few years later it should be commercializable. And if we were to seize that, then we would be on the cutting edge of this. And so that's what we've been doing for the past several years.
mm. Very interesting there. Yeah. Yeah. Cause, yeah, you definitely surprised me there when you said you were a warehouse nerd in grad school. I'm like, oh, I gotta hear
Yeah,
about,
for robotics, right? That
gotta
that
hear about this. Yeah.
intersection is very small. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So interesting to hear the story there. And obviously, very interesting to how you met your co-founder and how you're able to develop the solution utilizing drones and that unique kind of I guess positioning from a family perspective that you're able to see this challenge that people were dealing with. So tell us a little bit about we know it's a drone, definitely, but tell us a little bit about, how the solution works and how it addresses some of these challenges like missing inventory.
Yeah, so when we first looked at the problem, we tried a variety of things, right? We thought naively, what if we
Mhm.
put cameras all over the facility? We quickly discarded that because, as you know, these facilities go up 40 feet, 70 feet in the air.
Yeah,
Cameras can't see all that much, plus the maintenance for all the cameras for a million square foot facility. Like that's not going to work.
yeah.
We thought about building a ground robot, sort of like the ones that you see in grocery. And now there's a very excellent company out in Europe doing that, Dexory, and
Okay.
but for us that wasn't the, you know, when I think about segmenting solutions, there's sort of orders of magnitude, right? And the technology that was coming out in grad school was micro aerial vehicles, was drones, and these are small drones that fit on the palm of your hand, and they're very cheap to make if you can master the manufacturing process, which we have. And we figured that we can get these very small vehicles that can easily go up, 50 feet, 70 feet. There's no high limit, right? And do this fully autonomously. And so when you sort of segment out solutions for inventory tracking for autonomous inventory management systems, there's sort of your auto stores, that are, you know, 10 million, 100 million, right?
Hmm.
Then there's sort of ASRS system, like sort of more traditional systems that are, 1 or 2 million, X million,
Hmm.
right? Then there's sort of an order of magnitude. There's sort of the ground robots would always be substantially more expensive than frankly, a micro aerial vehicle. And so we kind of segment that. Of course, the more you pay in capital, the more the functionality.
Yeah.
But inventory control is something that doesn't necessarily have to be done 24/7. Like, you don't need eyes on every single location at every moment,
Hmm.
because it's not moving, most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the type of facility and so on. And so the core technology that we wanted to capitalize on was, we've built Corvus One, which is our product. It's the world's first, and as far as we can tell, only fully autonomous inventory drone system, meaning that it flies and does its mission day after day, week after week, month after month, with no human pilot, nobody moving it from aisle to aisle, no stickers, thousands of stickers that you have to put on for location, or beacons and
Hmm.
reflectors that you have to put on. And it's a very novel technology because it means the setup costs, the maintenance costs are so much lower. If your
Yeah.
warehouse racks ever change, if you move to, if you sort of move the racks around, then you don't have to go up and put up another 10,000 stickers or ceiling mounted reflectors or anything like that.
Mm.
Looking at the history of the space, I mean, we're not the first company to attempt this. We're just the first company to have succeeded. There's another dozen or so companies that have raised, tens of millions of dollars, $30 million, in order to do this, that have, attempted and then shut down over the years,
Mm.
either using an off-the-shelf drone, which then they have to move from aisle to aisle. There's been, a dozen or so companies that have done that, and then or they're trying to build their own vehicle, but then they weren't able to have the technical expertise to be able to do that. But we have, and it's through a lot of hard work. There's been no silver bullet. It's been lots and lots of lead bullets at
Mm.
all of the technical issues. Working with customers to understand each of the pain points and each of the different environments in every warehouse that we go into to be able to solve this. So I'm proud of what we've done. I think our team is, and it feels weird to say this, but our team is the best in the world at what they do.
Okay.
at building the fully autonomous warehouse inventory drones. And so we're helping several dozen very large companies, like global 2000 size companies, track their inventory every single day. Like they are flying
Mm.
every day, every night, weekends, and so on. Um, and they're expanding. So we're quite happy to be able to help our a lot of the customers that frankly comprise major parts of the U.S. economy
Yeah.
in tracking their inventory and sort of optimizing that. Like it's a key function that everybody does, even though it's not as sexy, it's not as cool, right?
It
Inventory
is.
control is not sexy.
I, th- I think it is. I'll say it. I think it is.
Thank you, Kevin. You and me,
Yeah,
we're the
yeah.
only ones.
I'm there with you, definitely. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's very interesting, and very interesting too. You mentioned there that there's not much real infrastructure change that needs to happen, right? No, like reflectors, like you said, or labels that need to go everywhere, which makes it easy to expand, right? If you're going to change your racking layout or put in more racking or whatever the case may be. So I think that's a really interesting point there. And you've said too a couple of times that it's autonomous, right? Which means it's doing this on its own. So I mean, is there any level of human involvement at all? Like what is that human drone interaction look like, if there's any
Yeah,
interaction?
not much. I mean, typically, of course, you're going to have to tell it to fly at some point. You can kind of set a schedule, kind of like Outlook or Google Calendar or
Hmm.
iCal, right? So you can have it set. Every Tuesday, I want it to fly at these particular aisles at these particular times. Wednesday, these other aisles, or have it go on a routine. But it's important for us to save that labor component such that at every week maybe you're spending a few minutes looking at this, as opposed to you know staffing a full time person to track this or manage the drones, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, Autonomy is really important. I mean, before this, you've seen the self-driving car space, right? Like the autonomous car space. They've invested hundreds of billions of dollars, and there's
Yeah.
maybe Waymo in SF and LA, right, and Arizona, and then Tesla works in certain parts of the West Coast. But autonomy is a very hard problem, and it takes a lot to be able to build that. And so part of our secret to success, and you alluded to this before, is we've just collected a lot of data on this and all the different types of warehouses. They look very different, different conditions, and built this large world model that our robots operate in. And so the way, an analogy would be 2023, 2024, you've heard of large language models. It's like ChatGPT, OpenAI, all this stuff that people are
Mm.
playing with, right? You're typing in there instead of asking Google about, something, right? 2025 and 2026 are going to be the advent of these large world models or large vision models. It's beyond just text. It'll be the things that robots and sensors see and how they can act in the environment. Um, and it's a very interesting space. I'm super glad to be working on this stuff right now. I mean, key to doing this is like we build our own drones here in
Mm.
California, and that lets us control the hardware stack such that we can collect the data that we want and train the way that we want and run the models on board the way that we want. And all of that is key to being able to deliver this type of solution to our customers.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too that, you're building the hardware yourself, which you said gives you like a little more control on that. So, obviously we've talked about the hardware here, and you talked a little bit about kind of the data capture itself and how that's working. But what does it look like on the back end? Because you're going out there, you're capturing the data, which a human would normally do with whether it's paper, hopefully not paper, you guys are using out there who's listening, but or like a scan gun or something like that. I mean,
Right.
so what happens then? It captures this data, and now there
Yeah.
is a
Yeah. Yeah.
discrepancy. Like, what happens on the back end?
So I'll give an example. Well, so for the warehouse themselves, of course, they we connect to their WMS. It's a
Okay.
pretty easy integration. There's just, I mean, it's inventory control. It's like what is where when, right? And
Yeah.
then there's some pictures and fancy stuff that we do, but the basics of it is very easy. So we can integrate to whatever Manhattan, SAP, Oracle, proprietary AS400 things like, but they end customers get a snapshot of their inventory, especially of discrepancies and exceptions. And so we'll note some of the things that we see that maybe they can touch up on. Here's some barcodes that are ripped. Here's some loose shrink wrap. Here's whatever, right? And then we work with the team to kind of add that as a part of their core inventory control process. Like you get the discrepancy report. Here are the locations. Swipe. See what the issue is, and truly, if there is an issue, right, then we make an adjustment, right? WMS says there's something. Here's a picture taken 10 minutes ago showing an empty location. Then we got to make a change. Then the other piece of it is for whatever type of new environment that we encounter at a site. So an example is actually out in the your neck of the woods. There were some
Yeah.
storms recently,
Hmm.
and there was some rain in some of the facilities and leakage, right? And so there were water puddles on the ground.
Yeah.
And so our drones hadn't seen that before because like you're in a warehouse. Why are you why would you expect
Yeah.
that? And so we collected that data and we trained on that data of seeing puddles on the ground, and then we updated all of our customers' drones fleet wide with new information on what to do when there are water puddles on the ground, which there shouldn't be, right? There shouldn't ever be, but
Yeah. There shouldn't be. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But
right.
it happens. Yeah.
But there are, yeah, and, and so that's an example of sort of the AI model that we do, and we provide all this to our customers at no additional charge, the
Mm,
free upgrades as a part of our robot as a service offering.
mm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think obviously, one of the benefits to AI there or in any sense, right, is that, the more data that it captures, and in this case, the more data it sees, I guess, in a sense, right, the more that it learns and improves over time too, as well. And you mentioned in there, talking about not just inventory discrepancies, right? Like not just the traditional, there's supposed to be 10 in this location and there's only 8, right? You talked about like a ripped label, right? Or loose plastic wrap in the location. So tell us a little bit more about that and kind of some of, obviously the core focus, I think, is this inventory control, but then it sounds like there's these additional benefits surrounding that just naturally happen because you're already taking a picture or visiting that location. So tell us a little bit about some of those additional benefits and how, some of your customers have been able to leverage that too.
Yeah, inventory control is mostly a cost center,
Mm,
except for some 3PLs who there's some ways that they can figure out ways to make more money. But for the
yeah.
majority of retailers, distributors, manufacturers, inventory control is frankly a cost center, and you want to spend as little as you can in order to get as good inventory as you can. You don't want to spend $1 million a year, hopefully, on just like
Yeah.
inventory for a warehouse,
Mhm.
or even 500,000. And so we're able to provide, because of the technology that we built, right, with these autonomous drones, we're able to provide this solution that's quite cheap, and collect that inventory and collect the data for the inventory in a way that's cost effective. And so, with that, in addition to the direct improvements to inventory discrepancies, there's the things that we can do to improve how that warehouse is laid out and some like workflow opportunities. And it depends, for that facility, but essentially it's improving utilization, improving routing, such that you can get the most out of your labor. Because we realize that a lot of these, for folks, these are cost centers, and if we can improve that, how they operate, how they store, that's all bottom line that the company gets to save.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an interesting, benefit is because I mean, I'll say, as a previous warehouse manager, I mean, I would sometimes send people just out to look for those things, right? Look for, like, is there a location that has a just an empty pallet in it, right? Or is there a location that's got trash in it that somebody didn't
Right.
clean up when they were done picking from it or something? And how do we clean that up so on the other side, when people are coming to put in new inventory or move inventory into those locations, whatever the case may be, there's not a slowdown for them. But I think that's great that it's constantly looking for those types of things too, because that keeps the operation flowing as well, which I think is super important. So interesting there, and I think even a great example too is the water as well, right? Like, oh, now I see water, and I create some kind of alert or do something differently in that sense. But so now, if we look at Corvus, and we look at kind of the landscape of inventory management and control, and trying to automate that, there's a couple players in the industry, right? So tell us a little bit about what some of the differentiators are for Corvus, and what makes you a little different than maybe some of the other ones that people have heard of.
I have a lot of respect for Dexory and for Verity. Um, the first company is they're both European companies,
Mhm.
and the first company has innovated using this basically like a mechanical giraffe. It's like a very
Yeah.
tall ground robot that goes up very high, and this goes around. And the second company essentially puts up. They came out of doing drone light shows, and so they put up a bunch of these sort of wireless beacons, just like for drone light shows, for the drones to know where they are. And We are in a unique space. Corvus Robotics is the only one that is building drones, but they are fully autonomous, not using
Hmm.
any sort of beacons or stickers or anything like that. And they are. Um, I would say that the ground robots sit in a marginally different sort of market profile than the drones. If you are using the ground robots to scan just everything constantly, you have a higher need. Maybe you have a much faster inventory turn or a much bigger facility, and that's a fundamentally different approach than the vast majority of warehouses. Which, like, do you really need to see all of your inventory, every single hour? And the
Right.
answer is, yeah, and pay the money to do so. And the answer is, frankly, usually not.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so these folks are quite good. We sit in a slightly different vertical from one of them, and the infrastructure, lack of external infrastructure of having to put up hundreds of beacons, or come back and do that if the racks change or something like that is a key difference. What's interesting though is that despite this, there's plenty of space for everybody. It's a very large market. I mean,
Yeah.
warehousing logistics is one of the biggest industries in the world.
Hmm.
The biggest competition, like the 98, yeah, like 98% of the competition is the existing way of doing things, right? Which is guy with barcode scanner and scissor
Yeah.
lift or something like that. And so until we are automating, having autonomous inventory management systems at the majority of warehouses, I mean, it's a blue ocean market. It's a very large market for every company to go after. I mean, even for full automation solutions like the auto stores, the Locus, the Geek Plus of the world. I mean, they have the sum of all of those companies is like a couple percent
Yeah.
or something of the market share, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for warehousing and for supply chain if we both understand the industry and also understand the technology.
Hmm. Interesting there. Yeah. Yeah. I was interested to hear your thoughts on that, because it's certainly something that I think is, like you mentioned, there's a couple different solutions, a couple different form factors to even and the way people are approaching it. And I think it is interesting there that, uh, not necessary to make those infrastructure changes is certainly a big differentiator that I see for sure. Because as you said, as that space or that the operation evolves, whether it's taking down rack, putting up more rack, changing the way the rack looks, adding more levels to the racking, whatever the case may be, having that to easily adopt to what this environment looks like now, I think is a definitely a big plus, and value add there for sure. So very interesting to hear about this and kind of learn a little bit about how you guys are approaching this problem, and some of the additional benefits on the side too as well, and how you're building out that hardware and keeping control of that a little bit. So as we look to the future here, what does the future of Corvus look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're growing quickly and we'll continue to do so in 2025, especially with a lot of the supply chain disruptions and challenges that are coming up. Supply chain is not going to get easier. People, companies, customers' expectations are going to get higher, and we have to continuously innovate and adopt technology and innovations in order to keep up with them. For us, we will keep developing our technology. There's a lot of sort of improvements that we can continue making using the data that we've collected for our vehicles, and it's all toward that vision of the autonomous inventory management system.
Mm. All right, and autonomous inventory management system, AIMS, right, is what we're calling it here.
AIMS. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, definitely, and we'll definitely be looking towards the future there, and seeing what you guys continue to do with that evolution. And I think what makes it most interesting, as we talked about here, is that continuous data capture, and kind of leads to like what additional things can this do, also while it's accomplishing this inventory management goal. So very interesting to talk to you here, Jackie, and learn about Corvus Robotics and what you guys are all about, how you were founded, and what you're doing there in the space. So, if people are interested in learning more about Corvus, maybe getting in touch and seeing if this is a good solution for them, what's the best way to do that?
Of course, go on our website, Googling Corvus Robotics or corvusrobotics.com, and always feel free to send us an email, sales at or info at corvusrobotics.com.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well. We'll also put it in the show notes here too, so people can easily find it. So, Jackie, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.